Hello everyone, welcome to today's Tuva Science Connections, where we're going to think about velocity, energy, and football as it relates to MSPS 3-1, where we're having our students construct and interpret graphical displays of data to describe the relationship of kinetic energy to the mass of an object and to the speed of an object. So what better way to explore this concept than with data that our students can relate to, data their parents might be interested in, but that really has that real world application of why does it matter that we learn about the relationship between kinetic energy and mass and or the speed of an object. So we can ask questions like, how does the velocity of impact on a helmet change the velocity of somebody's head post that impact? And what does that mean for energy, or what happens to the energy? And how does change in velocity of somebody's head post impact relate to the severity of a head injury that they're likely to receive? So these are questions we can ask in the effectiveness of football helmets activity using this data set. So let's dive in and start exploring the data. As a bit of an orientation to these data, the data come from the National Football League and Wayne State University. There are 16 cases, so 16 different points where they tested helmets under different conditions, and there are 5 attributes, and we'll explore those in a moment. But we can use these data of a real-world application where scientists were looking at impacts and velocity and change and energy to bring this concept to life for our students. So the attributes that we have the impact location on your head of the helmet, the impact velocity, so how much velocity was coming in as the helmet got hit, the helmet type, they were testing 2 different types of helmets, change in velocity of the head post impact. So the impact comes in and then what happens to the speed with which your head is moving, and then the severity index, which was their measure of how severe things were going, how severe the head injury was that could result from this impact. So let's dive in and start exploring, right? So our first question is, what's the relationship between the impact velocity coming into the helmet and the change in velocity of our head post that impact? So we can start to see that there's 2 clusters of groups. There's a group down here that's kind of hanging out on low impact velocity and low change in velocity of the head. And then there's a group up here. And while there are 2 groups, this group is higher than that group. So we can add a movable line in and get a sense of, okay, so what's going on? What might this relationship be? And you can see as we're sort of dragging and moving the line, we can see what that relationship is. We can also show the label so that our equation for that line of fit is there for us to be able to see. So this is an informal way for us to get a sense of what this positive relationship, or how we can dive more deeply into this relationship. If you want to go even deeper with our older students, right, we could actually plot the least squares line. Again, that equation comes up. If you want to kind of dive down this more quantitative route, we can explore the values both in those labeled equations and or down here in our summary view. But for us, right, we're just thinking of sort of, what is this relationship? Okay, so looking at our data, looking at these lines of fit that we have created, we can think about, okay, so as the impact velocity, as the speed coming in to the impact increases, the change in speed, or the velocity of the head post the impact, also increases. And if we pause and think about, okay, so what does that mean for energy and the relationship between energy and speed? Well, so as the speed increases coming in, the energy out of that impact most likely also increases, right? That energy is getting transferred into the speed, the change in speed of the head coming out. So we can sort of use data to informally explore this relationship and get a better sense. Let's go on to that second question we had, where we were curious sort of, is there a relationship? So the head is moving, there's a change in speed, velocity of the head post that impact. How does that relate to the severity of a likely head injury coming out of it? So again, looking at our data, we've got a small clump down here. with a low change in speed coming in related to correlating with a low severity index. But as we get up here, as we get to bigger changes in velocity, we're getting to our larger severe, like our more severe potential head injuries. And you can then ask questions like, why? What might be drivers of that? Or what's related to that? And we could use color to layer in a third variable. And so we could see, is there any pattern that relates to location on our head or on the helmet as to where that impact came from? And quickly we can see is that this group that's been hanging out here down in the low end on all these data that we're looking at, all 4 of them came from a rear impact on the helmet. Okay, so that's interesting. You could explore that to think of, in terms of helmet construction and design, what does that mean? Or thinking about the game of football, sort of what does that mean? What's also interesting to see is that all of our most severe head injuries that came at these really high change in velocities were all impacts to the temple. Now, not every impact to the temple resulted in a severe potential head injury or in a high change in velocity, but all of them that did were in the temple. And then a good number of them were also in the front, right? And so this is how we use this relationship, this pattern between our changes in kinetic energy and speed and mass with its real world application. So by allowing our students to think about and work with these data that has this real world context, we can not only teach the concept, but of sort of as there's a higher velocity of impact, the faster the change of speed is. So we could hypothesize that the faster the speed coming in, or we have this proxy that the greater the energy out is from that impact. And then, but we could build it further to think about the application. And so it's like, okay, so we care about there being more speed, more energy out of this impact, that greater change in velocity to somebody's head post an impact in football, because that correlates and positively relates to the severity of a potential head injury that they might likely have, right? So we've used data to take the concept and tie it to the real world while still helping our students gain a better understanding of it. This is, of course, just one of many physical science connections that you can make using data within the Tuva platform. I highly encourage you to check out the rest of the science content library, search by other physical science performance expectations or different topics. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We hope you have fun, a good rest of your day, and have fun playing with the data. Thank you.